Good evening. My name is Leslie Hansen. On behalf of the Greencastle League of Women Voters, WGRE, and the Banner Graphic, I want to welcome you to our second forum for this fall. Turn the evening over to our moderator, Maddie Tinkle. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Maddie Tinkle with WGRE News. The purpose of the forum is to provide the voters in the Putnam County area the opportunity to hear the candidates for elected office outline and discuss their ideas and issues in a spontaneous framework. It is hoped that the voters will be able to receive an accurate perception of the abilities of all candidates and thus make enlightened decisions in the upcoming elections. The ground rules are: candidates must adhere to time limitations and will be interrupted by the moderator when their time is exhausted. The audience members will be asked to refrain from applause until the completion of the forum. This request is made in order to keep the forum moving from a time perspective and also as a courtesy to candidates concentrating on their messages. Candidates may bring notepads and pens to the podiums for taking notes during the program. Stand-ins, family members, and other designated representatives will not be allowed to speak for any absent candidate. The panelists joining me tonight are Maddie Allen with WGRE News, Beth Newton-Watson from the Greencastle League of Women Voters, and Jared Jernigan from the Banner Graphic. We will start tonight with the debate for Putnam County Council District 3. This debate will include candidate Matt Cummings and last 15 minutes. The candidate can make a 2-minute opening statement and then we'll take questions from the panel with answers up to 2 minutes. We will continue until there is time for a 1-minute closing statement. The Republican candidate Danny Wallace was invited but declined the invitation. Candidate Cummings, you may come up. You may begin your opening statement.
You said 2 minutes?
2 minutes.
All right. Great, it's good to be here. Good evening, everyone. Thanks to the League of Women Voters, WGRE, Banner Graphic, and to all of our candidates today, our Democrats and my favorite Republican candidate, Rick Woodall. I view tonight as kind of a job interview. And I want to think of this evening as a job interview for all the citizens of Putnam County. And so the number one criteria of a job interview is, do you show up? Right? And so over the past 9 months, I have spent showing up to our county and to community events. I've been to First Fridays, I've been to knocking on doors, calling people, I've been in the parade, I've been at various community events doing 5Ks. I have showed up in this community because I want to win this office. I'm dedicated to winning. The next thing is, does this person have skills? And I think, yes, I do have skills. My undergrad and graduate degree are both in urban studies and community development, where we looked at planning, where I've raised over $200,000 in grant writing, where I've worked on financial analysis, data analysis, and budgetary analytics. I believe that I can bring those skills to this county to help prepare us to be a great place to live and a great place to work. And finally, the last question they'll ask you in a job interview is, what vision do you have for this county? What vision do you bring to our team? And I would like to bring a vision to this community that grows and fosters stronger communities through, one, I'd like to bring stronger transparency to local government. And so what that means is being an active communicator of what is going on in council and local government to our citizens. Next, I'd like to advocate for public education. I think that's essential with how much money our schools are losing to the voucher system. And finally, I would like to serve as a catalyst for bringing strong treatment centers to our community so that people are connected to treatment and have the resources available to them to recover and live a hopeful life. That said, I'm Matt Cummings.
Thank you. We will now take questions from the panelists, starting with Maddie.
So my first question is, are there any new services or initiatives that the county government should be thinking about to keep our county moving forward?
I think, how long do I got for response?
2 minutes.
All right, let me just set my timer here. Let me just set that. Let's not start yet. We're not starting yet. All right, now we're starting.
All right.
All right. So are there new services? Yeah, we touched upon them a lot last week. We need rural broadband internet. Number one reason for that is because automation is coming fast. It's coming quick. And our people who are out doing jobs out in rural agricultural settings need to have high-speed access and internet to this resources to better do and be more competitive. We're talking about drone-based farming. We're talking about self-driving tractors. If we ain't got no Wi-Fi out there, how are they going to work? All right, and we got to have kids who are connected to the internet, who are able to learn technology skills to be equipped and ready for high-paying jobs in this community. Average tech job in Indy right now is going at $75,000 starting salary. Our kids deserve that, and we have to have internet to prepare our kids for that. I think in terms of services, I'd also like to see a community center here that provides daycare to our kids that's educational based. I'd like to see after school programming. I think these are things that county government, city government, and our state government can partner on together to enhance our community. I got 45 seconds left. You want me to keep going?
Up to you.
And I think finally, in terms of services, I think I touched upon that last point of public health. We recently had that debate in our community, right? About treatment centers. Was it the right place? What's the thought process behind that? I think our community needs treatment. We have a meth problem. We need to talk about it. We either fund it at the inside, which is people going to jail, people not being economically viable, or we provide treatment which is more cost effective in the beginning that will help reduce those rates. So that would also be the third initiative that I look for in terms of services.
Hi, Matt. My first question is, the county signed a new contract with Operation Life late last year. This year, they announced that due to budget constraints, they were going to cover the ambulance needs of Putnam County with 2 instead of 3 ambulances. Do you believe that we have adequate ambulance coverage throughout the county?
That's a great question, and I'm glad you asked. It's definitely a question on a lot of people's minds, and I'm sure in the next debate they'll also hopefully answer that as well. I think the most important thing is when you call 911, how fast do people show up? Right? And so if that means it takes 20 minutes to get to Northwest Putnam County, if you could even make it over the bridges and the roads through the potholes and everything, we got to look at that and we got to fix it. We have to have low minute, time for ambulances to get to dangerous situations. If your parents are having a heart attack, if your kid's choking, those times matter. And that's what makes a great community, that we have quality services that will get to and respond to emergencies. So I would argue that we need to evaluate, we need to look at budgetary, we need to look at ambulance runs, we need to look at the data that they're producing, and we need to figure out how it works. What makes it the best system? If that means that we have to have 3 ambulances, then we need to prioritize the health and safety of our community.
Okay, good evening, Matt. As a county councilman, one of your main job would be to, guard the purse strings of the county. So, what would your main priorities be when it comes to the county budget?
So, knowing that our budget is limited, and saying if there was open funds in general fund, we've seen county government fund quality after-school programs. We've seen county governments fund recreational centers. We've seen them fund the community centers. We've seen them fund treatment centers. If we could organize our funds and put them towards strategic direction that will allow our kids to embrace quality education, to be connected to STEM-based education, if we could somehow earmark money to definitely enhance those levels, I would be in support of that. But I would also say that we got to figure out the road system. We got to figure out, how do we make sure that our bridges are ready, that ambulance and school buses can go down them, that the police could go down them, and that, as we're out riding our bicycles or you're out driving your cars, that we're not playing Frogger on the roads with all the potholes, which is one of my favorite games to play. And so I would say that those would be some of the budgetary issues that I'd be looking at. I think we need to, one, fix some of the things that are going on and maybe, adjust some of that, but also look and see what are some proactive initiatives that we can fund, especially for our youth, because our youth, are our future of this community. A lot of us have kids in school. We want them to have quality education. We want them to be to get those, high-paying jobs. We're seeing in the state right now of Indiana that 70% of people in this state aren't connected to a living wage. And that's an issue that we got to start preparing for. If we're not preparing for that, we're just going to see that gap in that economy between those who have money and those who don't have money get bigger. is going to continue to increase. So we can prepare through that through proactive initiatives like STEM-based funding and after-school care.
Okay, my next question is, can you talk about some of the challenges that we're facing with our budget and whether or not there are new sources for new revenue to meet those challenges?
I think one of the main challenges, and I think this came up, I mean, I think if you talk to any citizen, and we were out, Kim and I were out on Fillmore 2 days ago, and we were knocking on doors. First thing they said to us is, when's my road getting paved? Right? That is the first thing I've heard from every citizen. You know, it's constantly, when's my road getting paved? When is my road getting fixed? And so when we think about those difficulties, you know, do we have adequate money in our budget to meet the demands of citizens? And if not, how are we telling them that? I think that's one of the first things that we should think about. And sorry, you asked about budget inadequacies, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think as a role of a council person, I think that's where it goes back to that element of transparency and that element of communication. Are we communicating to our citizens what our budget needs are and what they should be, and are we benchmarking with other counties? We see that also with pay, especially, you know, an issue that came up was, you know, how much our county police are getting paid and how in neighboring counties, you know, they're able to make 10 grand more just by jumping over to the next county. That's an issue. We have the risk of losing quality applicants if they go over to the next county. We see a lot of turnover. Turnover is a bad thing in any industry because it costs a lot of money to train people and to invest in people. So I'd say those are some of the budgetary difficulties that we're navigating, are alongside our road maintenance repair, you know, beside, you know, adequate pay of our county of employees, and probably just, I think, general services and overall is something that we should be looking.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
What role should the county have in dealing with the opioid crisis?
That's a great question. I think first and foremost, if I've been to the drug panels with the Q&As, I think it's most important to know that the crisis right now in Putnam County is more meth than it is opiates. And so I think the one role that we have to have, I think, is being proactive with treatment. And that means having a treatment center that is residential where people could check themselves into and receive quality care. There's a great essay by Malcolm Gladwell called $1 Million Murray, where he talks about the cost of homelessness. And he says it's actually cheaper to give people money and treat the symptom up front than to continue to maintain the problem over the course of 20 years. Because you're looking at ER visits, you're looking at the time of, you know, county employees like your EMTs, your police, and them responding to these incidents. You're talking about the lack of economical viability. And so I think, yeah, there's a lot of moral stigma attached to should our public funds go towards treatment. That's an issue that I have to wrestle with, especially when we're looking at issues like roads, education. You know, how do we weigh these? But if your goal is a solution, I think the solution-based focus is to emphasize treatment up front, because in the longevity, it is more cost-effective, and I think it is better for the person. So I would say, in terms of, you know, use of opiates, in terms of meth, I think we need to be proactive in a county and figuring out, you know, how do we subsidize treatment and how do we connect people to treatment to reduce, you know, the recidivism and the reincarceration of those folks.
We have time for one more question.
Okay. How would you do you see the county council interacting with the county commissioners in terms of kind of the odd relationship of them making policy and the council controlling the money? So how would you look at interacting with the commissioners?
I think first and foremost, I would lower their salaries if they didn't like the way they were going. But no, I think that's a great question. I think, you know, you have your idea of people, and then you have like, how do we financially manage this, right? And I think that's a dual relationship. If there's not that discussion going on right now, I think that that would be one of the pieces that I would try to be the most proactive in, is how do we facilitate discussion? Because at the end of the day, it's not Democrat, it's not Republican, it's not Libertarian, it's not Independent. It's how do we become solution focused? How do we work with, you know, our mayors of this county, from our town councils, you know, our trustees? How do we talk about problems? How do we talk about how we can find solutions? And to me, I think that's the overarching part of this whole, you know, commissioner council divide, is thinking through how do we shift, you know, you do this, I do this, to let's be proactive, let's talk about solution, let's invite experts into the table and figure out what best serves this community.
Thank you. Our next debate is for Putnam County Commissioner, District 2, with Republican candidate Rick Woodall and Democrat candidate Steve Cash. You may now come up. It will last 30 minutes. The candidates will each make a 2-minute opening statement, and then we'll take questions from the panel and answers.
About a closing statement.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Yes, we missed that. Sorry. Closing statement of up to 1 minute.
Do that
I'm
one.
skipping ahead here. You may now go ahead.
My closing statement is, yes, I'm new to Putnam County. I've lived here for 5 years. I'm a Hoosier native, born and raised in Bloomfield, Indiana. I've traveled, lived, and worked in multiple places from nonprofit to for-profit to international. I think I bring a lot of skills to this place. I think I bring a lot of skills to the community. I'm deeply vested into running and deeply vested into winning this election because I believe that I bring a skill set that can better serve our community. I have kids here. I own a home here. I worked here for 5 years. Now I work in Indy. I think that there's a lot that I can offer to this community, and I hope in November, when you get to the ballot section, if you're in my district and you see Matt Cummings, you take your little, actually, I guess it's a button. You push the button and click my name, and that's all I'm asking for. In November, find my name, vote for me, and the best I can do is try hard and listen to our citizens and finally be present for you to be there and talk to. Thank you very much. Matt Cummings.
Thank you. Now we will have our next debate for Putnam County Commissioner, District 2, with Republican candidate Rick Woodall and Democrat candidate Steve Cash. It will last 30 minutes. The candidates will each make a 2-minute opening statement, and then we'll take questions from the panel with answers up to 2 minutes and rebuttals up to 1 minute. We will continue until there is time for only a 1-minute closing statement. We will begin with an opening statement from Steve Cash, since he won the coin toss before the start of the debate. So you
I
may
beat you already. At least once.
you may begin.
Good evening. And first of all, I'd like to get the thanks out of the way here to WGRE, League of Women Voters, Banner Graphic. Catch everybody here. Leslie Hanson from the League of Women Voters, who got us off to a good start. Our panelists, Sarah Russell, Maddie Tinkle, Jared Jernigan, and Beth Newton-Watson. And my name is Steve Cash, born and raised in Putnam County, and going on 66 years worth. And but I had one issue here that I thought I needed to solve right up front, and I had this happen to me in Indianapolis once. That I went into a place that I'd been doing business with for several months, and the guy didn't recognize me. So for anybody that may not be recognizing who I am, I thought I'd help you out a little bit. So for the video portion of here, you try to grasp this. I won't wear the hat through the whole thing, but so you kind of get an idea of who you're looking at and seeing down the road. As I've covered all the roads of Putnam County for many, many, many years. Graduated from Purdue, been a ag teacher and science teacher, a dairy farmer, crop farmer, beef and hogs, and probably know every road in this county with few exceptions. Went down a new one yesterday, or a couple days, Sunday, yeah, and down in the southwestern corner.
Thank you. And Mr. Woodall, you now have 2 minutes for your opening statement.
Okay. Thank you very kindly for having us here today. I feel kind of like the Lone Ranger, but we're moving on with that. Thanks to WGRE and League of Women Voters and the Banner. Name's Rick Woodall. I've been your current county commissioner for the last 4 years. The things that I have learned in the last 4 years are astronomical. There's so many things that I never realized that happened in this county and the way things work and the way dollars work and how you come up with numbers and things like that. Lived here 51 of the 52 years of my life. Raised 3 children. 2 or 3 of those still live here, and 4 or 5 of those grandchildren are still living in this county. I have a vested interest in this county. I love this county. I doubt we'll ever leave this county. I got into this 4 years ago by opening my mouth and telling things that I didn't like what was going on and that I needed to try to see what I could do to change things. I feel like we've made some headway. There's still a long, long way to go. There's issues in this county that we've already brought up tonight and that we will continue to bring up. There's some issues that will take a lot longer than an hour to discuss and debate and figure out how we fix them. But I'm willing to do that. I appreciate being here tonight and get this ball rolling.
All right, thank you. We will now take questions from the panelists, starting with Beth this time.
Well, let me ask again. Excuse me. The county signed a new contract with Operation Life late last year. This year they announced that due to budget constraints, they were going to cover the ambulance needs of Putnam County with 2 instead of 3 ambulances. Do you believe that we have adequate ambulance coverage throughout the county?
Mr. Woodall, yes,
I'm
you
first?
may begin here.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. The Operation Life is one of the issues that we could talk for hours on, that I would love to talk for hours on. It has been one of the biggest issues that I've dealt with in the last 4 years. I am on the Operation Life board. I see the financials of it every month. The contract at the county, let's just start with Operation Life, is a contract employer of the county. The county signs a contract every 2 years for EMS service. We signed it 2 years ago. For I don't know how many years we've paid $60,000 a year for ambulance service. This past year, due to decreasing revenues and the payer mix of our county as we are growing older in Medicaid and Medicare, the revenue stream has declined. And to compete with adjoining counties and to keep quality people, we and I'm speaking as Operation Life Board right now, we need to keep quality people because when I call 911, I want somebody to be there and I want somebody that's going to be capable. All right? Now, back to the 3, not to skirt the issue, the 2 and 3 ambulances. In the county contract, it says that the EMS provider has to provide quality or ambulance service to cover the entire county 24/7. It does not say anywhere in there how many ambulances. With that said, we had 2 people that bid on that ambulance service. We had the Star and Operation Life. Both of those directors recommended we do 3 ambulances. Once we got into it, I have to talk really, really fast now. Once we got into it, due to the budget, we could not afford 3 ambulances. So they cut back to 2, and we were going to do 3 at certain peak periods of the day, or the day of the week, the evening. So thank you very much. Woo!
Mr. Cash.
Okay, I'll kind of start from there, I think, because there's been many occasions where Operation Life was not able to get there. And I was made aware of one the other day at Putnam Park road course, and they made the 911 call, and 30 minutes later, they didn't get Operation Life. They didn't get a star from Greencastle. They got a star from Brazil to come, and 30 minutes is a long time. We also had a case of an emergency at South Putnam I know of, and it took 25 minutes to get, I think Operation Life did come to that one, but it was 25 minutes later. And that's, in an emergency situation, That's not acceptable. I think there was, when the decision was made, there was question with STAR's quality. But I question whether there was enough investigation or chance to be as well informed as they needed to be on which group was the best group for the bid. Granted, I'm not on the Operation Life Board. I don't know everything that happens there, and but I think it's something that needs to be looked into in a lot more detail.
Thank you. Mr. Woodall, you now have 1 minute for rebuttal.
Okay. No, really rebuttal. Just I want to continue this Operation Life. I took the lead of the commissioners when the ambulances service come up. I spent approximately 5 months driving around, going to other counties, investigating STAR and the services they provided and the things that they did. I struggled really hard with, and if you look all over the state, there's 20 different ways that counties do ambulance services. Okay, there's counties that run their own. There's private individuals that run their own. There's Warren County pays almost $1 million a year for their ambulance service. I felt when STAR bid $60,000 for ours for 3,100 runs a year, and then they bid $200,000 to Clay for 2,000 runs a year, along with everything else they had to do. That was one of the determining factors, and I'm gonna run out of time. I've still got about 10 more minutes worth. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Cash, you now have 1 minute for rebuttal.
Coming from the Operation Life Board is the only question that comes up in my mind is, you were partial to that when you started.
Absolutely.
And so, and I know how bids work, and sometimes you gotta throw in a low bid to get in the operation, and then you can, increase it from there, and so that issue I would have questioned a little bit too. But I know when I've had groups come in as a South Putnam School Board member and they want to deal with South Putnam, they come in and sit in front of us and present their program, exactly what they're going to do. And maybe that occurred, I don't know.
Okay, as someone in this position who would represent both District 2, in being from District 2, but also being voted on by the entire county, how do you propose to balance the needs of Central Putnam County with the county as a whole?
That's mine, right?
Yes, that is yours.
Probably, I've been doing that for about, 40 years? In my agribusiness, I cover all of Putnam County, and actually 11 counties, but Putnam County is one of them. And I talk to people in Russellville. I have customers in Russellville that I talk to quite often. I have people at Bainbridge. I have people at Roachdale. I have people at Cloverdale, Bell Union, Fillmore. I get around to the whole county, and I have a lot of customers in the county. And part of the reason I ran for commissioner was I was going to different parts of the county, and they were telling me what the commissioners need to be doing. And part of those, Clinton Falls and areas over there, places where they fixed the roads maybe, or they worked on the ditches, but they couldn't get the combine through down the road because of all the tree limbs. And just part of the area that didn't get addressed, that some of the farmers had to go out and do it themselves and take their time and effort to try to get their equipment down the road.
Can I ask the question again?
Yes, it would be, as someone who comes from District 2, but obviously is voted on by the entire county and has to serve the entire county. How do you balance the needs of your district in Central Putnam County with the needs of the county as a whole?
When I started 4 years ago, my thought was I am voted on by the entire county. So I realized that I represent the 4 townships in the middle. But to me, the entire county is a concern of every commissioner. And I've worked with Mr. Walton and Mr. Berry that we've come to a group agreement on that. Let's take the roads, for instance. We have every 2 years we have a road rating, a PASER rating that the state has us do, which rates the roads from the worst to the best. So just because most of the roads are in District 1, that's the roads we need to fix. If those are the roads that are the worst and have the most traffic, that there's what am I looking for? Mathematical equation. That's the word I'm looking for. Mathematical equation. Then those are the roads that we fix. I understand that I represent District 2, but I truly represent the entire county because all 37,000 constituents can vote for me. And so I truly feel that I do represent the whole county. And that's how I feel.
Mr. Cash, you now have 1 minute for rebuttal.
Okay, the only thing I would do is try to be more aware and acceptable to people that live out in the county that have issues with the roads or whatever the situation is, and that I can address. You know, maybe it's just fixing a pothole, or find a cheaper way that we can still afford to fix a road issue or tree limbs or whatever it be, regardless of whether it's in Greencastle or Timbuktu.
You and Mr. Woodall, you have 1 minute.
Okay. When I ran 4 years ago, I had a gentleman at Heritage Lake tell me that 30% of my job as a commissioner is dealing with the highway department and the roads. And the other 70% of it is actually running the county and making sure that the budget set by the county council, that the departments are fiscally responsible for that they spend it correctly. But he said 99.867% of your phone calls will be my road is horrible. And he hit the nail on the head. Absolutely. We spent $1.6 million this year to resurface, chip and seal, paved roads. Of that, we did 15 miles of paved roads and are somewhere in the 50 to 55 miles of chip and seal. All right. But there's 715 miles of road, 511 of that is paved in this county. So if you do the math, it's going to take a long time to get that fixed. And it just is a time restraint.
Thank you.
What are your thoughts on how the county has been spending its money so far in 2018?
My turn, isn't it?
I think so.
Yes.
How the county spent their money in 2018? I think our total budget for the county for 2018, and don't hold me to this, somewhere in the neighborhood of $13.7 million, I think, is somewhere in that area. It's everything that includes. We did not or will not go over budget this year. We have saved money this year in healthcare. We started new initiatives in healthcare in the last 2 years for our employees. We started health fairs. We did heart screenings. We did lung screenings. Last year, we received a $400 and some thousand rebate check on our health premiums. We pay right in the $1.4 to $1.7 million is what we pay for healthcare for our county employees. By teaching them to do things a little different, and helping them and do clinics and things like that, we have saved money and been fiscally responsible. I also feel like the commissioners, we pay the jail off. The jail is currently paid off. That was $400,000 a year. We are currently banking that money because we are going to have to build an annex in the next few years. We have a third court coming to the courthouse in July. We will run out of room. We will also run out of weight. They're already telling us the courthouse is overweight. So the load limits are at their max. So we are going to have to do that. The way things are set, if we do things right, I truly believe we can be within 85% of paying cash for a new building, which is going to run about $2 million. All right. How many counties and how many in this United States builds a $1, $2, $3 million project and pays cash for most of it without putting a tax burden on? And I feel like that's a huge accomplishment.
Okay. I can't speak for their work and the county council's work. I'm sure they're hogtied with what the state gives them. But one thing that I can do and will do is continue to work with state government in funding counties. I ran legislative update sessions for the last better than 10 years at Farm Bureau, and we have meetings, and I have personal contacts with John Crane and Rod Bray, and they are our representatives and have done a lot. Jim Beard has also worked with us some, and we need to secure their help in raising the funds we need to do the work. I agree with him on kind of earmarking some money and like that. Spending 23 and a half years on the South Putnam School Board, doing the budget, we were able to establish a rainy day fund. And now some of the emergencies that come up, the gym almost washing away with the water leak, they have the money to do those emergency projects. So similar to what Rick has done, I have been a part of too.
Mr. Woodall, you have 1 minute for rebuttal if you'd like.
Let's go to the opposite side of being fiscally responsible. As we said earlier, let's go back to my favorite subject, which is Operation Life. We spent years at $60,000 paying them, and now we're currently at $400,000. I assume that number is going to go up as the years carry on. That is not that to me, off the top of my head, is not being physically responsible, but it's an issue that we have to work through, because in this last 4 years of being a commissioner, there's only one thing that's kept me up at night, and that is this Operation Life and the EMS stuff. Because when I have an issue at home and I dial that 911, I want somebody to show up in a timely manner. And that is something that we will continue to work through if I'm reelected. And that is an absolute promise.
Thank you. Mr. Cash, you now have 1 minute for rebuttal.
I agree with the needs with Operation Life, but we have a lot of other outside needs beyond that. Our homeless shelters we don't have any place for homeless men, and there's a lot of things we need to start thinking outside the box. We might have a grant writer in the council that can help fund some of these projects that we haven't even thought of yet. And we need to take care of what we have, but we need to be looking to the future for things we don't have now, and for the people that need our help in those areas that I deal with quite a bit.
We have time for one more question.
Okay. Are there any county land use regulations that you believe need to be reviewed or changed?
County hot
Yes.
dog.
You want to repeat that?
Are there any county land use regulations that you believe need to be reviewed or changed?
Regulations. Probably, we're getting into zoning issues, and I was able to work with some people when we did that a few years ago and worked on that. And we have corrected some of the issues there as far as the 10 acres you had to buy before you could build a home on this property, and how much frontage of the road you had to have, things like that. And I think we've corrected some of those. I know we've still got some areas of development that we still need to figure out, and how to fund things. When a big factory moves in and you have houses being built in that area, you have increased numbers of kids in schools, and you've got to figure out a way to take care of all those issues that are accumulated during that process. But the zoning issues is probably need to be revisited again. I know they're pretty strict in some areas that they need to use some common sense, I think, probably.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Woodall, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you. The one thing I'll start with saying is we do need to revisit some of our zoning rules and laws. Case in point, something that I learned in the last few years, there is a current zoning case in Cloverdale Township that has been going on for 7 years. It has cost us and the taxpayers almost $19,000 for this issue. And it's just drug on, and it's too wet, it's too dry, I can't move this, I can't move that. So there's definitely a lot of room for some zoning critiquing and tightening up some rules, I believe. One zoning law that I think it is hitting a lot of counties, and those of you who drive through Montgomery County will see the no windmill signs. We have already had 2 requests in the last year from companies wanting to know about putting in, is that what's called, windmills? Whatever. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. And we have 0 zoning against that. So that's another issue. Now you ask yourself, is Putnam County a windy enough county that they can have things like that? The answer to that could be yes and no, but that's something we don't have any zoning laws about. So anybody could come in here and put up one of those big old wind generating stations and go for that. There is a lot of talk, Steve hit on it, that we talked about 10 acres, reducing it down to 5 and 3, 350 feet of road frontage, reducing it down to 250. We are a growing county, no matter how we look at it, because of people moving into from the urban areas. Housing starts this year. I think we have done right at somewhere in the 60 to 70 new home permits this year that we've already for this year, and time is up.
Thank you. Mr. Cash, you have 1 minute for rebuttal.
So we are a growing county.
As you mentioned, the zoning issues that need to be worked on, the windmills, we probably don't really need to go too deep into things that may not happen or not affect Putnam County until we kind of get there. I was around when we set up the zoning rules to begin with, and I've been to some of the meetings, that established that, and it looked good on paper to start with, but we're still dealing with what was set up back then. And I think I'm done.
Still have time if you're done. That's fine. Mr. Woodall, you now have 1 minute for a rebuttal.
I really don't. The only thing I'll say is I am really anxious to see the 2020 census. I truly feel like our county has grown a lot. If you look, you drive by everywhere, you see somebody building something or somebody doing something. So our town and our county is getting more crowded and crowded. Part of that, though, with that is we will get a bigger tax base. We'll have more people on the tax rolls. One of the things the county council fights all the time is staying within the levy. They fight that every year. We have to stay within the levy. You have to find different ways to generate more income. Luckily, this year the county council approved a 5% pay raise for all county employees. So, which to me is something that our county employees are underpaid. But it's just a struggle that's going to continue year after year. So.
Okay, thank you. We will now have 1 minute for closing remarks. Mr. Woodall, you may start.
Okay. I have thoroughly enjoyed and been thoroughly frustrated with the last 4 years. I have learned more than I'd ever imagined I would about how government works. There's times when I go home to my lovely wife and tell her that if this happens in Putnam County, what in heaven's creation happens at the State House and in Washington, D.C.? It's just amazing. But with that said, I truly enjoy this job. Even the 2 phone numbers that I got on my answering machine tonight when I got home about how terrible the road is. I do enjoy the job. Things, if elected, that I will work on are returning phone calls in a more timely manner. There are times when I have absolutely just laxed in that, and that's my apologies and my bad. We will also work with a 7-year road plan. We've started on that last year. We're going to try to chip and seal and pave every road in 7 years and turn them over. We do about, like I said, 1.6 million, and time is up, and thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Mr. Cash, you now have 1 minute.
Got 7-year road plan. Will the bids be done before June? That's my question.
That's a very good question.
And
They
because
should
when the
be.
bids are done in June, it's October when we get the work done, and so that is an issue that the commissioners need to.
Do not
just you,
do not
but just
disagree with that at all. Trust me.
Everybody
do not
has to work
disagree with
on it.
that at all.
But I want to really thank everybody for coming tonight and listening to us. I've been in this county forever that I've been alive, and I have one quote that I'd like to leave you with, and that was from General Schwarzkopf years ago at a convention, and I'll say it real quick. He said, when you give a new job, this is from his point of view, but just go in and do it and take it over. And when you have a real controversial question, he used 5 seconds of mine, and he said, do what's right. And with God's help, I'll do what's right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Our next section will be for Putnam County Township trustees. We have Tom Chiarella, whose opponent Marcia Carrington was invited but declined to attend. J.D. Grove, whose opponent Jeff Alexander was invited but declined to attend. We have Russell Harvey, whose opponent Steve Butts was invited but declined to attend, and Chelsea Fiddler, whose opponent Tina Sillery was invited but declined to attend. Each of the candidates will be allowed 3 minutes to speak about themselves and what they will bring to the position. And we will begin with candidate Tom Chiarella, if you'd like to come up. You may begin when you're ready.
Say what?
You may begin when you're ready.
All right. Oh, give me the numbers over there. My name's Tom Chiarella. I now live in Bainbridge, Indiana, on the east side, which is within Floyd Township, and I'm running for Floyd Township trustee. When I decided to run for trustee, I was told by a lot of people, friends, mostly friends, that I had no chance, that it was a Republican's job and that a Democrat had never stepped in for that. And I really just wanted to do it to show that I was willing, that I felt I was able, and I wanted to engage in some dialogue with the Republican incumbent. And as time's gone by, I decided that I should win. And I'm going to try to win because it feels to me like the job, no one's watching. I aim to do some things that are relatively benign, like start a website, try to make the office of the trustee less mysterious to the citizens of Floyd Township, to hold public meetings in public spaces, to maintain office hours in a public office, an office that's in a public building, not in my house, and to work on making the position understood by all the citizens of the area. I would like to see improvements broadly, although this is not in the purview of the trustee. I'd like to see improvements in the quality of our internet. And I'd like to see the trustees across the north side of this county work together to work on this ambulance problem. Because when you live in Bainbridge, where there's a ambulance building, but no one to staff the ambulance, as a 56-year-old person, I can tell you that it feels a little nervy to think it's going to take 30 minutes for an ambulance to arrive. The best number I got since I moved to Bainbridge was from my neighbor. He said, "This is the Hendricks County ambulance. Call them first." That was 4 years ago. Imagine now. I'm going to tell you that I also stood at the BP in Groveland, which is in Floyd Township, and a grumpy old guy said, "What does it matter? Trustee just pays the cemetery's mowing fees." And although that's true, the trustee is in charge of the cemetery's mowing fees. The trustee is also charged with the possibility of making grants for the purposes of household assistance, of utility assistance, of healthcare assistance, and food assistance to those in need. Now, I've driven every road in my township. I don't know them as well as Mr. Cash. I have lived in this county for 30 years, however, and I've now driven those roads all more than once and walked many of them in canvassing. And I can tell you that there are people in need in the township. Floyd Township, there are 1,008 townships in the state of Indiana. Floyd Township spends the third least amount per capita of any township on the people who are in need.
Thank you. Your time is
Am I
up.
over?
Yes.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Well, I'll stop. I will just say this. The township trustee in Floyd Township is paying herself salary and fees of over $15,000 and has provided exactly $2,900 in grants to utilities customers. I got the numbers. You can check me out over here and I'll be happy to talk about it.
Thank you.
Question?
Nope, that's all. Thank you. You're fine. All right. Next up, we have J.D. Grove. If you'd like to come up to speak about yourself, you will also have 3 minutes. And you may begin whenever you're ready.
I'm JD. I own Conspire over in the square, and you guys may have seen my little boys with the long ponytails running around town. I moved here in 2002 to build a cabin on my family's homestead property from the 1840s. Nobody lived there in 100 years, so there was no electricity, shelter, water, and so the first 2 years I was here, I was in a tent, and I had kind of a rough time, especially when the snow was flying, and I didn't know who to ask for help. And so to me, the township trustee is the person that you go to for help. And rural poverty and small town poverty and homelessness, it just looks different than in our, it looks like couch surfing or living in a tent or a tool shed or a car. And so, like Tom said, transparency in this position is really important. It's important to me personally. There should be web visibility for people who use the library computers or their smartphones to find information about where to get food or to get help with their utility bill. And there also should be information in the paper and flyers and invitations to open township board meetings so that people who don't use the internet can find their trustee and talk to them directly. I'm in the shop a lot. I'm downtown, and I talk to people every day who need clothes, they need shelter, they need mental health care, they need counseling, and it's not my job as a business. Our other downtown business owner's job, it's a job of the trustee. And I think I would be more effective in that position than I am as a business, trying to help my limited resources. Specifically, I would love to work with Beyond Homeless to help bring a men's shelter that we know. I'd like to continue working with our local people who are addressing the opioid crisis. Pastu and meth. We have an addictions crisis that looks a lot of different ways. It affects people in my township. I see that. Families becoming, and I see it feed into poverty cycle. I'd like to continue my work with the non-food pantry at St. Andrews that does such a great job administering meals to people and supplies that they can't get. I'd like to continue my grassroots work with the Little Free Pantry Project, with the Giving Gardens that bring the community, a community effort, which it should be. And I would be an active presence here for people who need it.
Thank you. Now we will have Russell Harvey, if you would like to come up. You will also have 3 minutes, and you can begin when you're ready.
So thank you to the League of Women Voters, WGRE, and the Banner Graphic for sponsoring this forum. My name is Russell Harvey. I'm employed as a buyer with a local manufacturer here in town, and my wife Charity and I have lived in Greencastle for about 13 years and have raised 5 wonderful children in this community. So providing assistance to low-income families, providing funds for fire protection, and maintaining cemeteries are just part of the responsibilities that a trustee has that impact the safety and care of our loved ones, our friends, our family, and our community. The key is to maintain a balanced budget with increased transparency to be a good steward of our tax dollars, our hard-earned tax dollars. More detailed reporting and eliminating unnecessary spending is vital. So I plan to work to fortify relationships to utilize existing community resources in conjunction with the trustee's office to provide an appropriate resources for those in need, not just for the moment, but for the long term that will connect people and help lead to better sustainability that builds stronger individuals, stronger families, and ultimately a stronger community. And doing so will also help strengthen our local economy and provide better ways to use our tax dollars. So maintaining cemeteries where our friends and family and loved ones are laid to rest is important. These are special places and important to maintaining the bonds and the sense of love and community that we all share. As trustee, I will look to find ways to increase the funding for fire protection. We all know that our hardworking firefighters are a vital part of the safety in this community, so it's important to make sure that they have access to the funds and resources that they need to do their job effectively. So look, I love this community. We've done good work in Greencastle Township, but we can do more. I'm the youngest of 7 boys, and before me and my wife got married, I was a single dad raising 3 children. So I know the struggle. The same struggle that many people in our community have and share in. But also know firsthand that connecting people with the right resources can change people's lives for the better. So really, I have friends that are firefighters in this community and other communities, and so we know the hard work that they put in. And we need to make sure that we're giving them the resources. But really, I just want to say that I'm passionate about this position. And so because of that, I know that we can do great work.
and I would just be honored to have your vote in November.
Thank you. And finally, we will have Chelsea Fiddler, if you'd like to come up. You may begin when ready.
Hello, my name is Chelsea Fiddler, and I'm running as the Democratic candidate for trustee of Clinton Township. I want to thank WGRE, the Banner Graphic, and League of Women Voters for having me, and thank you all for coming out tonight to listen to what I have to say. I'll make this quick. I believe that actions always tend to speak louder than words, and my fellow opponent, Mrs. Tina Sillery, is not present tonight. Rick Woodall happens to be the only Republican candidate who showed up, so he is golden. I also believe that accurately documenting financial records for this type of position is vital, and this needs to be brought to everyone's attention. Mrs. Sillery has failed to provide consistent and legitimate financial records indicating exactly how she is spending the money she is given to help the people of Clinton Township who are in need. I'm not here to speak negatively of my opponent, but in a respectful yet honest fashion. If your bank failed to send you monthly statements, wouldn't you be alarmed? If an employee failed to show up for their job, would they typically get to keep their job? I work 2 jobs, and I know that I would not have either job if I did any of that. Clinton Township deserves someone who is honest, hardworking, and accountable. I want to thank you all for your time and hope you all vote wisely this midterm.
Thank you. We now move to the audience participation section of the evening to give members of the audience the opportunity to ask questions directly to any of the candidates. Our moderator will be Leslie Hansen from the League of Women Voters. WGRE and City Local Access TV will return to regular programming at this time.